Now, I was out on the Savage River a couple of weeks ago, early September, and believe it or not, I saw a couple of bumblebees out. And it reminded me that having a couple of specialty flies like this in our fly boxes is not a bad idea. Now, I call them a specialty fly because probably wouldn't want a dozen of these in your trout box. I mean, maybe if you're a pan fisherman and you got a box dedicated to bluegills, yeah, put a dozen of these things in there because they're going to eat them all day long and probably all year long. So I looked through some of my books for one to tie, and I found one in Courtney Williams' Dictionary of Trout Flies, published in 1973. Now, I am using some black dry fly hackle for the legs, but this thing is still a wet fly. The body is chenille, it's not weighted, and after a couple of false casts, it'll probably be fairly dry and then float just a little bit, but it's going to be a slow sinker, pretty much like a drowned bumblebee would be anyway. But it's a pretty fun tie. I think y'all are going to like it. So there we go in the vise, a bumblebee pattern, actually a wet fly. It is a terrestrial, but still a wet fly. Now, if you'll notice, those wings, they don't look very good, but that's because I'm using scrap materials for them. I mean, it is going to sink, and we have no idea what aspect angle the fish is going to be looking at it from anyway, so I wouldn't worry about trying to get perfect wings. Now, this is pretty big. The bumblebees here in Maryland are huge. This is a size 8, one extra long wet fly hook, and I'm going to use some black thread. Go ahead and catch it in, take it back to the start of the bend. And since this is pretty big, I'm using medium chenille. Going to be a yellow and a black. I'm going to catch the yellow in first because I'm going to wrap the black first. And I will show you why in just a second. If you notice, I stripped a little bit off, just leaving the bare thread core. It makes it just a little easier to catch in. Okay, after you got them caught in, go ahead and take your thread up, leave it a little bit back because we do have one more component up front, or two more really. We want to wrap the black first. That way when we wrap the yellow will be prominent. And you can kind of space these out just a little bit. You don't have to put them right next to each other. It's probably okay if you do. It might make it a little bit thicker. This fly pattern will probably not be as thick as a real bumblebee, but I think it's close enough. Okay, so we got that caught in. Now we're going to wrap our yellow, and maybe in those little grooves that we left with the black, but what you're going to notice is that the yellow is going to be prominent. If you wrap the yellow first and then put the black down, the black would be prominent. And we don't want that. We want it to be more yellow than black. So go ahead and bring this up and then catch this yellow off. Now go ahead and trim this, and then you're going to have to blow it because it'll leave a bunch of fuzzy fibers everywhere. Now I think we're fine. We've got a little bit of shaggy black there in the back, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. And now just take some scrap tips from your dry fly hackle, lay them on a little bit of an angle so that they might splay out on you. We'll do a couple of loose wraps right here and see. I want this to be a little bit farther back. Okay, that's probably fine right there. They're coming off a little bit to the side, so I'm going to just try to get them coming off the back. I think we're fine. Couple of tight wraps, and then snip the excess here. And now the last component, just some black or dark dry fly hackle. Don't put so many wraps that it might cause this thing to float. We don't want it to float. I mean, it's going to float as is for a little bit, but we want it to be a sinker and then a fairly slow sinker. So go ahead and catch that feather in, then snip it off. And we'll do about, I don't know, 3 wraps. We'll see what that looks like. I think that's 2.5. I think that's going to be enough. I'm going to go ahead and catch it off here. Okay, and my head's going to get a little bit big, but as long as I don't clog my eye, I'll be fine with it. Let's pull everything back and go ahead and make our big wet fly head here. And I think I got enough room for my whip finish. And I've got this excess feather here. Might have a little bit of cleanup if I've got any of these fibers going forward that I don't really want. I've got a couple. I can snip them, pluck them, or singe them. And I got a little bit of shagginess in that black chenille coming off the back right there. But I think we got a fishable fly. A little bit of head cement and this thing's good to go. So that's it, my friends. Bumble Bee terrestrial wet fly pattern. So I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care and we'll see you next time.